Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Hibiscus Motorsports. You joined me in the Jeep today, but I can assure you this is not a Jeep video. Today we're going to be installing new brake rotors and pads on the Miata. Definitely a lot more aggressive of a compound on the pads than my previous ones. So without further ado, let's get into what we got and get into the install. Alrighty, so getting into what the Powerstop Trackday front and rear brake kit for an NA8 Miata gives you is that you get OE equivalent rotors. These are not drilled or slotted or anything like that. The reason why is that on brakes that are the OEM size like this, they really don't need drilled or slotted rotors. It's like drilled rotors are good for cooling but can definitely crack because obviously you have holes going through them. They're not really used in high performance racing. It's more slotted rotors. And these cars are light enough where it's more about the aggression of the pad versus the rotor. So OE equivalent style rotors from Powerstop, these will be perfectly fine. And then these, the pads, are obviously the main part of the kit. You know, what actually makes you stop. And these are a carbon fiber metallic. We'll get later into the video about why I picked this kit and all that. But these are going to be very aggressive brakes, but still streetable. They definitely create a lot of dust though. But again, if racing, you don't really care about that. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into putting these on. First things first, obviously, wheel comes off. Easy, you know, all that. If you're not running hub-centric rings for aftermarket wheels, I highly recommend them if your wheels can take them, as it gets rid of a lot of vibrations, but that's other, you know, put that aside. So, obviously, as you can see, my rotors are rusty. These brakes were my first brakes. They were a kit from R1 Concepts. They're good brakes. They're definitely on the cheaper end. I think the whole front rear kit was about like $140-ish. It's drilled or more like a countersunk rotor, and then slots, and then ceramic pads. These have been really good for me, but I've definitely noticed that pushing it very hard on the autocross track, they do tend to fade if I'm out there for more than, I'd say, about 6-7 minutes. So that's the main reason why I'm upgrading. I could probably get another couple more autocrosses out of these, but it's definitely, because they definitely still have some pad life. We'll go over it later in the video, but definitely time to upgrade. So, without further ado, let's get the caliper and caliper bracket off and pull everything apart. So now with both pins, because on the Miatas, as you can see, it uses the pins slash bolts that hold, the pins slash the sliding bolts that hold the actual caliper to the bracket are both, it's both the bolt and the actual sliding pin. So definitely make sure, if you're doing this, grease these up. But now, we're going to simply be taking the actual caliper off, like so. Putting it up out of the way where it's not going to fall. And now just taking the actual retention clips off. Simply these little just kind of U or V-shaped pieces. They just go into both brake pads. They're just meant for anti-rattle. And we take the old pads right out. There we go. And now we just got to take the actual bracket off. It's 2 more bolts and be able to pull the rotor off. So now with everything on the front braking assembly disassembled, you know, you might be asking yourself, you know, Cole, why in the world are you replacing these? So you can see these pads still have a ton of life left on them, and the rotor doesn't have any grooving really on the edge, anything like that. So first things first, let's talk about the differences. Is that these are ceramic metallic pads versus the Powerstop ones are a carbon fiber metallic. So the big difference here is the temperature resistance for brake fade and the overall bite of the brakes. So what I mean by brake fade, if you don't know, is that as your brakes heat up, you know, brakes obviously have an optimal range of where they function. Too cold, they don't really do their job, and too hot, they begin to experience what's called brake fade, where they're overheated and they're not effectively slowing down your car. It just creates for a bad time. It's, you know, it can obviously on the track can lead to you, you know, flying off the track if your brakes just completely give up. So the more aggressive and much more heat resistant pads are always going to be better. Yes, obviously they do cost more. Like I said, the carbon fiber metallic set just for the fronts costed just as much as this whole set for the fronts and the rears did. For light track duty though, these worked fine, but again, I'm just replacing these solely because the fact that I did definitely, after being on the track, like I said in the intro, for, you know, 5 to 7 minutes, if I came back off the track, made sure all my temps were good, and went right back out, these definitely were faded. As you can see, I mean, it's got a little bit of a chip up there. These brakes just, even though they still have a lot of life left on them for like a road car, when it comes to racing, if you're ever going to build a race car, you'll know that parts get replaced a lot more frequently than they would in a street car. So and then, you know, another reason too is, like, for example, these pads have, you know, a nice little chamfered edge right there. That just makes sure that the front of the pad doesn't potentially lift off the rotor when braking, creating, you know, a much more even and, you know, braking face. These ones do not have that. So again, it's just, obviously, you get what you pay for. But I got these ones. I have no complaints about these. These are perfect brakes. I got these just because I didn't want to do a track day. Obviously, with OEM brakes, I would have destroyed the brake pads. Wouldn't have been fun. So these have definitely served their time. It's time to step up now to a much more aggressive and track-focused brake. But yeah, that's the main reason why, because in case you saw in, you know, the video taking them off, or in the clips, I should say, sorry, taking them off, you know, these still have plenty of life left on them. I'm going to hold on to them just, you know, in case something happens, because they're still good brakes. But for a track base, it's time to upgrade. I personally like to put some anti-seize on the actual hub face, just to make sure that it all stays nice and clean, makes it easy to get rotors on and off. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, you know. But like I said, I personally enjoy doing it. I just try to keep it a little bit away from, obviously, my lug nut studs, as you don't want anti-seize in those. You don't want them potentially coming off. But yeah, just a little bit, not a lot, just enough to kind of coat the actual surface. And then, biggest thing, if you've never done brakes before, biggest piece of advice I could ever give: always put anti-seize and grease on respective bolts. So these bolts will get anti-seize, these will get anti-seize on the threads, and then grease on the actual sliding pin. Definitely keeps everything alive longer. So, without further ado, let's put everything else back on. And once when this one's done, 3 more to go. on a completely different side note, weird thing I've noticed about carbon fiber metallic brake pads is they have a really weird smell to them. I don't know if anybody who watches these videos in the comments or anything like that has ever worked with carbon fiber metallic pads. These ones are Powerstop brand. I don't know if there's, I'm sure there are other brands out there, but yeah, if any of you guys have ever worked with these kinds of brakes, let me know in the comments if they just have a really weird smell to them. I don't really know else any other way to describe it. It's a hard smell to describe. It almost kind of smells like gear oil, I'd say, if you've ever worked with that. But yeah, definitely definitely a bit off topic. But yeah, if you've ever worked with carbon fiber metallic brakes, let me know if they smelled weird. So, moving on to the rear. First things first, obviously, took the wheel off. And over the rear calipers on a Miata, or an NA Miata, only have one half bolt, half sliding pin. It's got this little cap on it, kind of a pain to take off. I just used a pair of pliers to get it off. But now, simply, I'm just going to be removing the little 10mm half bolt, half sliding pin. And then the actual top sliding pin will rotate out of the way. So once this one comes out like this, simply all I'm doing is lifting the actual caliper up and sliding it back until it comes off the pin. I will say, I definitely give Mazda props for how they designed this whole system, as it's very, very easy to work on. But then again, it seems like that's kind of the whole theme with the Miata, is it's a pretty easy to work on car. So hey, for anyone who is potentially on the fence of getting a Miata, and that was something you were concerned about, take it from me. I've owned mine for about 1.5 years. These things are crazy easy to work on. Once again, I'm sure you guys are going to find it crazy. These pads are practically brand new, but again, just going for the upgrade. So, just got to keep taking stuff off. Now it's time for the caliper bracket. I mean, again, these things are just so easy to work on, especially if you have a rust-free car like mine is. So, there's another piece of advice. If you're looking at potentially getting a car shipped to you from a state that's not, or doesn't get any crappy winter weather, definitely do that. As my car came from down south, and let me tell you, I don't think I've ever had to use PB Blaster once to get a bolt off this thing. So I know a lot of people don't enjoy doing their brakes themselves or messing around with them, mainly because of the rear brakes. And the reason for that usually is because, you know, the rear brake obviously controls your parking brake, e-brake, whatever you want to call it, and manual. It's technically a parking brake because you don't have a park, obviously. On Miatas, it's super simple. If you're curious, basically behind on the actual caliper, there's going to be a little 14mm nut with a copper washer. This copper washer is very important if you have a Miata, just so if you're watching this for that. That is what seals in the the brake fluid, hydraulic fluid, whatever you want to call it for this. It seals that in so it doesn't go anywhere. But you take this off and it's going to reveal this little pin, key, whatever you want to call it. One side is a 4mm hex head, and then the other side has a bunch of splines. And the spline side goes in, and if you turn it to the right to tighten it, it will begin to tighten the actual rear brake pads, and tighten, that's for actually activate the e-brake. Turn to the left, it loosens it, obviously. So on Miatas, what you do is make sure the parking brake is off. You put this little key back in its hole and begin tightening it while spinning the actual hub, and you just keep going and going and going until you cannot spin the hub anymore, and then you back it off 3/4 of a turn, half to 3/4 of a turn, and then just test it with the actual brake, make sure it's good, and then you're all done. So quickly, just to demonstrate what I mean, I can still spin this by hand. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn this back Allen key until I can't get it to budge by hand, like that. And then I'm going to back off the Allen key 3/4 of a turn. Like so. So I can get it to spin by hand. And then when I pull the e-brake, parking brake in this case, it should not be able to move at all, just like that. So there we go. Alrighty guys, as you can see, we've teleported back to the Jeep, but that's gonna do it for this video, so thank you so much for watching. Overall, brakes, they're very easy to do, so very easy, quick video, but you know, thank you so much for watching. Also, again, as I said in the video, if any of you have ever worked with brake pads that are carbon fiber metallic, if you ever worked with them, again, comment down below if they had a weird smell to you or something like that. I know that sounds really weird, but it smelled like gear oil, and it was just really, really weird. I've never had a brake pad smell by just opening up its packaging. But anyway, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. It's the best way to support my channel. To all my new subscribers, thank you so much, guys. I've noticed that the subscriber count has been going up for my channel in the past couple of weeks. As of recording this, we are at 28 subscribers, so I'm super happy about that. So thank you so much, guys. It really means a ton. And yeah, so see you in the next video. Peace.